Just from your, playing the odds, can something this big get passed in this environment?
Well, it's an opening bid, right? It's the first time since 1986, so in an entire generation, that you have an opportunity for comprehensive tax reform. You've got the House and the Senate and the White House roughly aligned on the outlines of what they want to get done. There's a strong push to try and rearrange the tax code so that it incentivizes more business investment, more investment generally, higher levels of savings, and growth in the economy. This is a big lift, though. In 1986, then President Ronald Reagan had 300 people working in a war room trying to get this done. The Secretary of Treasury is out on point, much as Mnuchin is right now for President Trump. But it takes a president really working not just his own side of the aisle, the Republicans, but persuading some Democrats, and that's where the real challenge is going to be.
Absolutely, and that's the difference between making these a temporary tax cut versus something that's permanent, right? Yeah,
I mean, the other thing that's changed dramatically is that the amount of moderates on both sides, on Republican moderates and Democratic moderates, who would be in play, would be part of a deal. They've been wiped out over these last few years as we've become more polarized. So it makes the job a little bit harder. But the main goal really ought to be to try and make sure that the businesses that have the greatest possibility to grow the economy, and they're mostly smaller businesses, quite frankly. The net new jobs are generally mostly created by businesses that are newer and under 100 employees. In this case, the Trump plan would provide a dramatic tax cut for not just corporations, the largest corporations, but also for pass-through entities. And they're about 95% of all the businesses in America.
Right, and they, of course, lead the way in terms of making jobs. Do you see anything in this proposal that would be amenable, that would be appealing to Democrats to bring some of them over?
Well, there are some, increasing the standard deduction helps all taxpayers. The way this is framed right now, any taxpayer that's making really under about $24,000 or $25,000 would pay no tax because of the standard deduction. There are some elements in terms of child care that are in here that would be appealing to Democrats. But this is going to be, it seems to me, it's going to be a more difficult sale. You have to keep in mind also, I assume the president is making this as an opening bid. The actual language, the drafting of the legislation is going to be done on the Hill by the House and by the Senate tax writing committees.
One thing in this proposal that probably a lot of Democrats aren't going to like is the elimination of state and local tax deductions, which theoretically could really sock it to the budgets of states like California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, where there are a lot of Democrats and a lot of people paying high taxes. And so, as I think Mnuchin put it today, it's not the federal government's job to subsidize those states' budgets. From the perspective, I'm curious your perspective, because from the perspective of a Republican who might be representing part of New York, how do you sort of weigh those things and this idea that it would potentially put a lot of pressure on the New York State budget were it to go through in that way?
Well, this is where the politics of these things come over, right? So you see, it's not just whether you're a Republican or Democrat, but the area that you represent. So you'll probably find a number of Republicans in coastal areas, which tend to have states with high state and local taxes, that will have some reservations about this. They'll be hearing from constituents when they go home in August for the recess, for example, at town hall meetings. So it is going to have an impact on those states and on those taxpayers. The idea would be that the Trump administration would argue, yeah, but we're going to make up for it by doubling the standard deduction, and that you would get more relief with that than you are getting by way of your deductibility on state and local taxes, which will be true for most working class families. If you're an upper income family, not so much so. The only way to pay for lower rates, though, to have it roughly in balance, is to eliminate lots of deductions, both on the corporate side and on the individual side. That's where the money really is. So to get those rates down, which is what the primary goal of both the House and Senate Republicans and President Trump is, you have to eliminate these deductions and to some extent some credits, but mostly on the deduction side, or cap them to be able to get that money out.
As it's currently proposed, it's not revenue neutral right now, this plan.
Correct.
How big of a problem do you see that being?
Well, it's not an insignificant problem. We're at the highest point in terms of national debt that we've ever been, about $20 trillion overall. About 14 of that is held by the public. And it's projected to continue to go up. Interest on that debt is projected to go up to the point where, under this current trajectory, it will be the largest single item of the budget. So there'll be a real balance and tension between trying to keep that in check and trying to promote growth. When I left Congress, we were still in surplus, but the way we got to surplus was with higher growth. So if you really want to do that, we've been investing about 1/3 of our traditional level in our capital stock, so we're way off on that. If you look at GDP growth, business investment is the laggard. We've got to prompt that, and the way to do that is really targeting some of that growth to businesses that are innovators and growers.
All right.